El Toro at Six Flags Great Adventure is considered by many to be the best wooden roller coaster in the world. And it's not hard to see why. This is one of the tallest, fastest, and wildest wooden roller coasters in the world. Few coasters can match the sustained ejector airtime that El Toro delivers. But do I think El Toro is the world's best wooden roller coaster? No. And honestly, I think it's a bit overrated. El Toro opened in 2006 as the third of 4 prefabricated wooden roller coasters manufactured by Intamin. These prefabricated wooden roller coasters have several advantages over traditional wooden coasters. The wood track is laser cut in a factory as opposed to being cut and built on site like a traditional wooden coaster. This reduces the time to assemble the ride, hence why these prefab wooden coasters were nicknamed plug-and-plays. And the precise track work allowed these prefabricated wooden coasters to offer glass-smooth rides when they debuted. While I have not ridden T-Express, I have also ridden Colossus and Balder, so I will be sure to compare El Toro to those rides throughout this review. El Toro is located towards the back corner of Great Adventure, and it anchors the Plaza Carnival area. El Toro sits on the site once occupied by Viper, an odd Togo looper that was despised for its rough ride. El Toro actually reuses Viper's old station. Needless to say, El Toro was a major upgrade. Six Flags took one of the most hated rides in the park and replaced it with a contender for the world's best roller coaster. The one negative about El Toro's location is that it does not open for holiday in the park. Six Flags Great Adventure's amazing winter event. But that may be for the better. While I would undoubtedly love to ride El Toro in frigid temperatures, I'm not sure El Toro would enjoy that. El Toro is very temperamental in cold weather, and believe it or not, the ride can actually valley. I know that could be surprising to hear because the ride flies through a majority of the course, but the entrance into that final brake run sits considerably higher than the rest of the finale. El Toro runs 2 very long trains. Each train can seat up to 36 riders. One train is fittingly themed to a bull, while the other one currently advertises a Kia Soul. I find it sort of comical such an intense wooden coaster is currently advertising an SUV. El Toro's station is very narrow. As a result, people tend to congregate towards the front of the train, and that works to my advantage. El Toro is unequivocally a back row ride for me. As I mentioned in my Skyrush review, El Toro is one of those rides whose first drop is so amazing that it is a crime to deprive yourself of the airtime it provides in the back. Now, you may actually prefer riding in the second to back though. When El Toro opened, it was glass smooth, but over time, the ride has developed a few rough spots. Most of the ride is still extremely smooth, but there are a few points that offer a roughness unlike any I've experienced on any other wooden coaster. When El Toro gets rough, you don't get traditional jackhammering. Rather, it's an abrupt sharp shake or a moment where your spine will feel like it's being compressed into the seat. I think those rough spots become even more pronounced because the ride is so smooth for a majority of the layout, so those rough patches really catch you off guard. And these jolts are most pronounced in a wheel seat, or the back row of any car, which is why my personal favorite seat is the second to back. The airtime is no different than the back row in my opinion, and the jolts are far less noticeable. But again, even in a wheel seat, El Toro is smoother than most wooden roller coasters and completely re-rideable in my opinion. I've experienced these jolts most often at the base of the turnaround, after the speed hill, or during the twister finale. As of 2020, the only jolt I experienced was at the base of the turnaround, but this moment was pretty rough in 2020. Thankfully, Six Flags has done an excellent job maintaining El Toro through the years, so I'm hopeful they'll give this section some TLC in the off-season. Compare that to Heidi Park, where they let Colossus get so rough that a complete retracking was needed prior to the 2019 season. Six Flags has chosen to replace El Toro in pieces instead. That way, the ride does not have to go down for an extended period of time. Let's move on to the restraints. El Toro has U-bar restraints that are very comfortable, for me at least. However, El Toro is notoriously one of the most unaccommodating roller coasters out there. The ride crew at El Toro is typically ready to dispatch a train before the previous one hits the brake run, as long as there isn't a larger guest on the ride. Outside of maybe the Intamin impulse coasters, I cannot think of a roller coaster in the US that's less accommodating to larger guests. It's not uncommon to see someone told they cannot ride. El Toro begins with a speedy cable lift. One of the criticisms people have given El Toro over the years is that the cable lift hill starts slowing down at the top. And this is true. The lift does now slow down at the top. But I rode El Toro before and after the cable lift was slowed, and I have noticed no difference in the ride experience. After cresting the lift hill, you round this 180-degree turn. If you look straight ahead, you can actually see some of the park's safari for a brief moment. But if you look to the left, you'll be seeing that imposing 176-foot drop taken at a 76-degree angle of descent. Remember how I said El Toro had a long train? If you're in the back, you'll start to see the front of that train head down the drop before you even complete the 180-degree turn. So by the end of that turn, you're already picking up a considerable amount of speed, and you are absolutely thrown over El Toro's drop. The sustained ejector airtime is absolutely incredible. And if that's not enough, you also have this wicked head chopper at the bottom. This is easily one of my favorite coaster drops in the world. It's up there with the drop on Sky Rush, Iron Rattler, Expedition G-Force, and the B&M Gigas. If you've ridden Colossus, that coaster is an excellent first drop as well, but the ejector airtime isn't quite as forceful or as sustained as El Toro's. As for Balder, that drop merely gives some decent airtime and cannot be compared to El Toro's drop. The pullout from El Toro's drop offers some powerful positive Gs. It's actually sort of surreal going from the powerful ejector airtime to gray out inducing forces in a split second, but that's exactly what El Toro does. That's then followed by the two best airtime hills of almost any coaster. The back-to-back camelbacks offer some of the best sustained ejector airtime on the planet. Each hill provides 3 to 4 seconds of glorious ejector airtime. And it doesn't matter where you sit, you will be ejected. The only other coasters that offer similarly strong airtime that's sustained for that long are the two camelbacks on Steel Vengeance, the fourth hill on Six Flags New England Superman, the camelbacks on Sky Rush, the camelbacks on Expedition G-Force, and the second and third hills on Colossus. And if you note the theme there, all but one of those rides are from Intamin. Intamin is the king of sustained ejector airtime, in my opinion. And much like the first drop, the pullouts from these camelbacks are pretty darn tight and also lay on the positive Gs. Now, up to this point, El Toro has done nothing wrong. It's arguably the best start to any coaster. Those two camelbacks lead into the turnaround. The entrance of this element offers a brief pop of sideways airtime before curving back towards the ground. Now, the valley of this turnaround pulls some pretty strong Gs, but it's also currently the roughest spot in the ride, as I mentioned earlier. It rode pretty smoothly in 2019 with some fresh track work, but it's already rough again. You then crest another sizable hill, which oddly doesn't give any real airtime. Up front, you get nothing, and it's quite jarring after the airtime buffet of the first half. Towards the back, you get a tiny bit of airtime in the descent, but again, it's nothing compared to the airtime earlier in the ride. That's followed by a speed hill, and I hate to say it, this element is another dud. This hill is fast, that's for sure, but it's way too drawn out to give anything more than a meek pop of floater airtime. You then rise up into a high speed turn, giving everyone another tiny pop of airtime. So after El Toro's insane start, this ride has a bit of a lull towards the middle. The turnaround speed hills are just okay. And when I'm talking about an elite ride, I expect more than just okay. Fortunately, El Toro returns to greatness with the hill leading into the second half, which has been dubbed the Rolling Thunder Hill. When El Toro originally opened, El Toro crossed over the park's older wooden coaster in Rolling Thunder. While Rolling Thunder was closed in 2013, the section of track El Toro crossed over remained in place, so you can still see that bit of Rolling Thunder to this day. But back to the famous Rolling Thunder Hill on El Toro, this hill is absolutely insane. The apex of this hill is ridiculously tight, so it delivers another dose of sustained ejector airtime. The airtime isn't quite as sustained as the first two camelbacks, but honestly it may be a tad more powerful. This is another airtime moment that is amazing no matter where you sit. That leads into the twister finale. El Toro flies through a series of high-speed, low-to-the-ground turns. The transitions are quite abrupt, so you get thrown to the side a bit between each turn. You then rise back up over the twister section on this S-hill, and it's shocking how quickly El Toro loses speed in this hill because you were flying just a second ago. This S-hill gives a pinch of floater airtime roughly on par with the speed hill. You then travel over another small hill, and if El Toro is running fast, you may get another teeny tiny pop of airtime here. And then you hit the brake run. Now, while I love the Rolling Thunder hill, the rest of El Toro's second half is decent. Again, when I'm talking about an elite coaster, I expect something better than decent. To me, El Toro is defined by 4 moments: the epic first drop, those amazing 2 camelbacks, and the insane Rolling Thunder hill. Those 4 moments are as good as any moment on any coaster. But none of the other elements on El Toro are true standouts in my opinion. There are no bad elements, but the other elements are decent at best. So for that reason, I give El Toro a 9 out of 10. My favorite roller coasters are great from start to finish. They have no dead spots. In my opinion, that's where El Toro suffers. I don't love El Toro's pacing. The ride hauls until the very end. I will not deny that. El Toro is a fast ride and it feels fast. But I consider pacing to be how quickly a ride throws a great element at me. The best paced rides bombard me with great elements from start to finish. For El Toro, you have the best start of any coaster, and then through the rest of the ride, the only remaining element I absolutely love is the Rolling Thunder hill. Now those 4 great elements are truly exceptional, and I can see why those elements make many consider El Toro to be the best wooden roller coaster in the world. But for me, those 4 elements leave me wanting more. After my most recent rides in El Toro, I actually prefer Balder to El Toro. While the 4 best moments on El Toro are better than any individual moment on Balder, Balder has so many amazing ejector airtime hills from start to finish that I prefer that ride. But I do think El Toro is slightly better than Colossus at Heidi Park. Both rides start off similarly. You have a drop, 2 camelbacks, a turnaround, and a speed hill. I think El Toro's first drop is a bit better, and the airtime on the camelbacks may be a tad bit stronger, but they're otherwise very similar. Where El Toro gets the advantage is the Rolling Thunder hill. When El Toro does that, Colossus goes through this slow, forceless downwards helix. I do prefer the finale in Colossus though. Those final few hills give some solid floater airtime, and I prefer that to El Toro's twister finale. Colossus also has the edge in the smoothness department. It's butter smooth since the retracking. But in the end, El Toro is still a very good wooden roller coaster, even though I personally don't think it's the best one in the world. What are your thoughts on El Toro? Do you think it's one of the best roller coasters in the world? I would love to hear your comments about El Toro or any of the prefabricated wooden coasters down below. If you enjoyed this review, I'd appreciate if you gave this video a like and consider subscribing, because there will be a lot more roller coaster and amusement park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for listening.